From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
The Tiger Cats play the Edmonton Elks on Thursday. Kickoff is at 7:30. I'm RJ Broadhead along with Luke Tasker. Ticats are 3-5. They'll hit the midway point of the season after this Edmonton game. So best case scenario, they'll be 4-5. I think we should address the big news with the team in the bye week, Luke. Tommy Condell and the Tiger Cats mutually agreed to part ways. I know you spent a lot of time with Tommy, not only in your Ticats career, but in your college career at Cornell. It's always tough. It's part of the business. Your thoughts when you heard the news?
Yeah, something has to change when things are not going right. That game before the bye week there, Montreal, a lot of things didn't go right offensively, and that's just the nature of professional sports. It's almost like even the best coaches are going to have been fired a dozen times in their career. It's the way it goes. Tommy is a great football mind, really good coach, had a huge part in my football career and my growth as a wide receiver. I just can't speak highly enough about him and really enjoyed my years with him. And it seems like that's sort of the sentiment around. Coach O spoke very much the same, or in high regards of Tommy. And, of course, just wishing all the best, for him. And this is just the way that professional sports works. And, the Ticats, like you said, grinding and fighting to try to move back to a 500 win-loss record.
Yeah, it's tough, and I got to know Tommy a little bit too over the past few years, and great guy, family guy, and he's been so busy with football. Maybe he'll have a little time with his family, and then we'll see what happens down the road. But Tommy has great credentials, and Scott Milanovich has great credentials, and he'll come in as the offensive play caller. He's been a head coach. I look back at that 2012 team, Toronto Argonauts team that won the Grey Cup, that Scott Milanovich was the head coach, and he had coaches under him, Orlando Steinauer, now a head coach, Mike O'Shea, now a head coach, Chris Jones, a head coach, Jason Moss, a head coach. Like, it really was an all-star coaching staff. But Milanovich is kind of known for his work with quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks, and he's most recently spent time in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts as their quarterbacks coach. For a guy like Taylor Powell, who's young, he's had a couple of starts, and probably earlier in his career than he even thought he'd have two professional starts. He's going to have a third against the Edmonton Elks. Just getting, as a young quarterback, to know one offensive coordinator system and now has to get to know another one. It has to be a bit of a challenge for Taylor Powell, but, he's going to be the focus, I would think, of Scott Milanovich and working out a game plan that can be successful for Taylor.
Yeah, Milanovich is going to soften the blow, too. I mean, you don't have a training camp to install your style. Milanovich has been there. He's been with the Ticats. He didn't just walk into the building this last week, and so he has an understanding of the offense that's been in place all season. And so there'll be changes and there'll be new plays, some new concepts, but they're going to sort of morph the old into the new, I would think. And I think that's a great point, RJ, that Milanovich is a quarterback guy. I mean, so his focus and his approach is going to start at the quarterback position, and that's probably a good thing for Taylor Powell. You can imagine sort of a change where the head of the offense parts ways with the team from the coordinator position, and if a guy comes in who just gives you a to-do list and expects greatness, and that's kind of the end of the story, that can be hard for a young quarterback. I think there'll be a much more mutual working relationship here, and for a young guy like Taylor Powell, the third quarterback to be starting for the Ticats this year, and still learning the game and still coming off some ups and downs of his first starts. I think this might be a good relationship, a good offensive coordinator quarterback relationship here with Powell and Milanovich. And it doesn't end there. I mean, they've got problems to solve around the offense as well, and we've seen some changes made, and coming off of this bye week, we'll see. Maybe it'll look like a different Ticat offense.
Well, I'm going to play off of what you said there, Luke, because I do have a few statistics. You always love when I get to the statistics.
I do.
But offensively, there is room for improvement. Ticats were shut out for the second straight game in the fourth quarter. Third time this season they've been shut out in the fourth quarter. 3 straight games they've been held under 20 points. They only had 15 first downs in their last game against Montreal. That's the second fewest this season. They only had the 1 first down in the second half, and that was on their first possession of the second half, so they went about 28 minutes without a first down. Rushing yards were 93 yards, which was actually their, most in 3 games. So that's a bit of a positive, but that's an area that is interesting too, because the CFL sent out some statistics, and rushing attempts are up to 45% a game, and the CFL seem to be attributing that to a lot of backup quarterbacks. Well, the Tiger Cats are on their third string quarterback. However, they only rushed 31% of the time in their previous game. So maybe we'll see more of James Butler. And the other thing with this game at Tim Hortons Field, Ticats have only scored 3 touchdowns in 4 home games. So you want to get the crowd into it. You want to score those touchdowns. You want to put up points. So there's a lot of areas to improve. You were an offensive guy. You've seen the Tiger Cats. What would you like to see in this Edmonton game from the offense?
Well, there's been flashes of productive passing game, and we've had a few games this season where James Butler has been a huge difference maker, but never at the same time. Actually, I say back to Edmonton was maybe the one time when the run game and the passing game were both seeing some success, but for the most part, it's been a little bit one-sided. And then that second half prior to the bye week against Montreal, that was sort of the worst of both, I guess you'd say. Like you mentioned, the 1 first down, you can't win games like that. I want to say Montreal scored 18 points in the fourth quarter in that game, and so. What I'd like to see is cooperation, mutual production from the run game and the pass game, and they do help each other. Success in one should and can help the other, and success momentum is a real thing, and that confidence that comes. So I hope that Taylor Powell goes out there. I hope he has some easy, quick answers in the passing game. And you and I discussed for a while in the booth there. James Butler, to me, a great running back makes things happen after the first contact, after he breaks through that line of scrimmage. But even a great running back cannot overcome a hyper-productive defensive front. If that offensive line is not moving guys out of the way, you can hem in even a great running back. And so that cooperative relationship there with the offensive line and James Butler, really hope that we can see back to that game like in Edmonton where James Butler, rushing for around that 100 yards and making a huge difference. Back to that Edmonton game, that was Taylor Powell's first introduction as a Hamilton Tiger Cat to the field, and it's one of the bright spots of the season was his first play in the game, throwing a touchdown pass in Edmonton. That was to Tim White, and of course, coming after the unfortunate Matt Schiltz injury, and fairly substantial injury as it turned out to be, and. Now Taylor Powell is well into his games as a starter, and very much looking forward to how all of those parts piece together offensively.
Well, speaking of that last game against Edmonton, it was a good one for the Tiger Cats. 37-29, they won. That 37 points was the most points they put up this season. Edmonton made it closer than they wanted in the end, but looking back to that game, Matt Schiltz started. He was injured in that game. Taylor Powell, his first CFL pass was that touchdown to Tim White. And incidentally, that's Tim White's last touchdowns. So, he wants to get going. They had 4 touchdowns in the game, the Tiger Cats did. To put that into perspective, Luke, they have 4 touchdowns in their last 3 games. So maybe Edmonton is coming at a good time to get this offense back on track. And there are a couple of changes, or a significant change. Anthony Johnson was injured in training camp, and he's finally healthy into the 9th game of the season. A bit surprising that Terry Godwin, who's been very good, is out. But Anthony Johnson, he's somebody that I would think Ticats fans should be excited to watch in this game.
Absolutely. We saw flashes of him last year, adding into the production of that 2022 offense, and we don't know a ton. Watched him score a touchdown against Ottawa last year, but it's clearly a guy who the team feels strongly about. I'm not sure what to make of Terry Godwin being out of the lineup. He is a guy who I've actually really enjoyed watching this season, but Anthony Johnson gets the call, and we'll see how that goes. I'm always weary or hopeful of a guy coming off of a long injury like this. Is it the right week, and were you able to train while you're healing the one part of your body? Are you able to train and keep everything else going over that long stretch of time, more than 2 months? And sometimes that can be a battle. But I'm excited to see another Ticat wide receiver, big body, 6'2", 220, and looking like it'll be a good addition to this offense. And we'll see how things progress with Terry Godwin and the rest of these Ticat receivers here. And you're right, RJ. It's almost like you can think back to the last game against Edmonton, and there's a lot of things that we haven't seen since that game. Consistent offensive production, low turnovers, high takeaways. I mean, that game was that stood out in the Edmonton game, where the interceptions that the defense was able to make. You can remember seeing Katsantonis with a bizarre interception almost in the offensive backfield, ran it in for a touchdown, and that was a collective team effort there in Edmonton. And the only caveat to that is, of course, Edmonton is saying this is our chance against the Ticats, who are coming off a really difficult loss to Montreal in a bye week. This is our chance to right the ship and end this losing streak that they're on. So, yeah, these are two teams that desperately need a win. One thing that is maybe highly likely is maybe we're in for a great football game as spectators this Thursday night.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. 7:30 at Tim Hortons Field. As always, you can listen on the Ticats Audio Network. Andy Fantus, Bubba O'Neill have the pregame at 6:30, and Luke and I will have the call at 7:30. That's a big game against the Elks. Ticats would like to get to 4-5 at the midway point of the season. Elks are 0-9. They fired their president. Chris Jones gets a vote of confidence as their head coach, and he's trying to figure things out. He was on that coaching staff with Coach O and Scott Milanovich in that 2012 Argos game. I asked Scott Milanovich about that, if there's his defense, he knows your offense, and Scott kind of laughed and said nobody knows what Chris is going to do. So he does have have that respect in the league. Dylan Wynn, he's been practicing for a while. Another guy who was injured, a heart and soul guy, a run-stopping guy, and it looks like he's back in the lineup for the Tiger Cats. That should be a huge boost, right, Luke?
Absolutely. If we're going to see our guy get out there for snaps in the game, and you don't know, how that defensive line rotates heavy. They're in and out. We'll see how much Dylan Wynn is, how many snaps he gets, but he's a difference maker. And you can't expect, Dylan Wynn's not going to go out there and have the best game of his life out there, coming off of this long rehab process. We talked about this with Anthony Johnson. It's not the easiest thing, but he's gonna, if they're putting him on the field, we're gonna see Dylan Wynn make his, he's gonna make us say his name throughout the game tomorrow while we call this match in the booth. And I just am so excited to have him out there. He was one of, in my opinion, if he just won a net statement of football player, he's one of the best football players I've ever played with.
Yeah, he is fun to watch. He's intense. He'll be in the middle of things, and you get the feeling with Dylan Wynn that there isn't a first gear. It's all full out. It's pedal to the metal. So that'll probably be a challenge for him, like you said, Luke, to not coming off injury. You don't want to re-aggravate anything.
Yeah, after the game, he goes in the locker room and somebody's got to take the batteries out of him, man. Like it's just, he's something else.
When you look at the run defense, the defense has been very good for the Tiger Cats and kept them in games and created some takeaways. But one thing has stood out. Against Montreal, they allowed 135 rushing yards. That's the 7th time in 8 games they've allowed at least 100 yards rushing, which we're not used to seeing from this Ticats defense. 5th straight game where they've allowed at least 100 yards rushing. And Dylan Wynn will probably help that. I talked to Coach O about it. I talked to Simone about it, and they both feel pretty good where this run defense is. They just kind of feel that there's been an explosive play against them, and that's really added to those totals. And it's something they're working on fixing. But I guess the explosive play has to be reduced by this Ticats defense to bring that stat back to where it's been in past seasons.
Coach Orlando mentioned that exact point in the Coach O show this week about the explosive plays. And, you know, I always have an offensive cap on and thinking explosives are a good thing, and you gotta, give away turnovers are bad and explosives are good, and of course defensively it's the opposite, right? And so limiting those explosives, some of that comes down to getting up and plugging gaps in the front, but it also comes down to open field tackles too. And a missed tackle a game, it's like it'd be like an error, and I mean, it's really it's not a stat that's easy to track, a missed tackle, but that's a crucial part of the game. And a handful of misses, back to back, throughout, say, a quarter over a course of a couple drives, that's difference making. And so, it's got to be sure tackling, up front to avoid that when that ball bounces outside of the box and gets away from, the defensive linemen and those 3 linebackers. The DBs have to be sure tacklers, and for the most part, I mean, I think Tunde Adeleke, for an example, and Richard Leonard are 2 of the better open field tacklers in the league. And so it's almost like you got the pieces in place, and can the whole thing come together at Tim Hortons Field this week? And at some point it does. At some point a team that's struggling is able to turn the page, and of course, if this was the Elks Audio Network, you might want to be saying the same thing, right? Like, it's eventually these pieces are going to fall in, and you got from an Elks perspective, you scored 22 straight points against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last week, and of course came up short again. But there's not it's not like everything's totally wrong over there in Edmonton. They're looking to right the thing too.
Yeah, and if you look back to Edmonton's game to Tim Hortons Field last season, a lot has changed in a season, but it was a big comeback. Ticats led 22-9 in the third quarter, and in the final 12 minutes, basically from the final 12 minutes of the third quarter on, the Ticats were outscored 20-3, lost the game 29-25. The Elks quarterback was Trey Ford, and he's going to get another start, it appears, for the Elks. He's a pretty interesting guy because he runs a 4.4, so you really have to keep an eye on him, and he can be very athletic and a Canadian quarterback, so he's fun to watch. I don't know how much fun Ticats fans want to have watching him this week, but maybe down the road. But he can provide some challenges for a defense too, can't he?
Absolutely. He's got a little mobility to him, and it seems to me like the thing I can kind of like about watching him, he does have a desire to make the play. He can be exciting to watch, and so we'll see. And I mean, throughout the league, including these teams, there's just the quarterback volleying has just been unbelievable this season, and so one of these young quarterbacks or both would be awesome to come in and take control of some offense and to control the clock a little bit. But you've got these guys. You've got a Dylan Wynn out there. You've got these defensive players who are ready to bounce back from the fourth quarter against Montreal, where they were on the field that entire quarter. I mean, it was really a struggle for the Hamilton offense to stay on the field and to give that defense a little bit of a rest. So I don't know. I'm feeling like we're going to have a great performance from this Hamilton defense, and I'm excited to see a new Hamilton offense take shape.
Yeah, speaking of the Hamilton defense, if you're watching on video, you might have seen my dog Houston. He just poked his head up. He's a black lab, same as Simone Lawrence's dog Willow, black lab. So Simone and I often talk about how smart our dogs are. but Simone had a big game, and like you said, this defense will be looking to come up big. I think, to be honest, Luke, if I'm a fan going to Tim Hortons Field, I want the defense to be big, but I'm looking forward to seeing what the offense can do. Should we temper expectations on how many changes we'll see on Thursday?
Well, changes are going to be hard to recognize, to be honest. Production is really the thing that we as spectators and onlookers have the best gauge on. Are we getting big chunks of yardage? Are we scoring points? I do remember as we started to sort of shift in offense in 2017, the production came slowly. I mean, it was a little bit, there was a difference there, and there's just some natural energy that comes with, the change happening. I don't know what that is, but the change sort of gives life. It gives you a new thing to work on and a new perspective on how this route interacts with this concept and how the receivers on the same side should have their timing. And you just kind of get a little energy off that. And so I do expect to be able to see a difference. Anthony Johnson coming in the game. I think you're going to see a guy like Tim White gather a few more opportunities down the field. I've really been impressed with Duke Williams, and I would love to see 4 to 5 of those catches behind linebacker depth to a guy like Duke Williams in the game. And I don't think a Ticat fan should necessarily temper their expectations. You want to hope for the best and see it come to fruition. And I'm excited to see if that energy manifests itself in points on the board.
Okay, so you're saying 50 points for the Ticats?
At least. Oh my goodness, 55. No, it'll be a battle. I mean, and I would love to see, like you said, their previous highest point on season in Edmonton, and you can't. I don't want to understate it either. Edmonton's struggling, right? So you do want to take advantage of it. We always had the idea of keep a losing team losing, and there's some energy there too, and some just excitement to make that happen and make that a reality. So would love to see it. And Taylor Powell, as it always does, it's going to come down to a lot of decisions on his part, and we've seen some good. We did not see the ball move down the field in that last game. Will they be able to extend the passing game? And of course, you probably know what I'm going to say. Can they avoid the interceptions and turnovers?
Well, it's funny. When I talked with Scott Milanovich, he said that's the number one focus right now. Limit the turnovers and limit the penalties. Too many penalties being taken on offense as well, and making it difficult to get first downs with long yardage to go to convert the first down. So we'll see. Trying to keep it basic, but it is an important game, and Edmonton's a good team. Too many talented players to go winless for the season. Ticats, like you said, Luke, want to make sure that it doesn't happen this week, that they get that win. They get to the midway point at 4-5, and from all indications from players and coaches, it sounds like the team is getting better and better and healthier, and that we might see a much better second half. So fingers crossed, looking forward to the game, Luke, and we'll see you at Tim Hortons Field. Yeah,
looking forward to it, RJ. See you there Thursday night.
Of course, you can catch on the Ticats Audio Network Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly. That will be Thursday before the game. I think it comes out in the morning, so you get a real good taste of what to expect. And the pregame show at 6:30 with Bubba O'Neill and Andy Fantus. And Luke and I will have the call at 7:30. Eastern Time on the Ticats Audio Network.
It's been another busy week for your Hamilton Tiger Cats. Luke Tasker and RJ Broadhead have covered it all, and now we would like to hear from you. Email us anytime at gameday@ticats.ca. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.